Hi, this is Pete. Recently, a friend of mine and I went out fishing, and it was a rough day, and we lost a stakeout pole. So I ordered the parts from Amazon for the fiberglass pole, and then I went to Tractor Supply and picked up the parts for the handle. Went to Walmart and picked up the straps and the carabiners, and got to work on it. It was pretty easy. We used it this weekend, and it worked really well. What I like about it is, one, it's pretty sturdy. It's made out of solid fiberglass. It doesn't weigh but about 3 pounds. It's 6.5 feet tall, which is pretty good for what we're using. And by doubling the bungee cords like this and holding them all together, it really works pretty good. So I'm going to show you how I built this thing. So if you want to try and build one, you can see how it's done. First thing you're going to need is a pole. And what I'm using here is a fiberglass tree stake. And you can find these on Amazon. This is a 1/2 inch tree stake. It ran around 10 or 15 bucks plus like $8 shipping. You can find them when they're in stock. They're cheap. There's other places where I saw these tree stakes going for $49. Don't pay $49 for them. You can find them. The other parts for this, I got at Tractor Supply for these two, and these are for connecting hoses together. This piece right here, $1.79. This piece, $1.49. I had a piece of PVC pipe laying around, so I cut that off. And what I use this for is the handle, because when you're out there and your hands are wet, this fiberglass gets a little bit slick. It's kind of real thin. By having this, you get a better grip for putting this thing into the mud and stuff and pulling it back out. The other things you're going to need, I use one of these eye bolts, and I picked that up at Tractor Supply, and it was like $1.29, and a couple screws. I also got some Gorilla Glue and an epoxy, and I'll show you what I'm doing with these in a couple minutes. So the first thing is, an 8-foot tree stake is pretty good, except for one thing: it's kind of long. Most of the time down here, the water I'm fishing in and using this in is around 3, maybe 4 feet deep. And 8 feet takes up a lot of room in your kayak. So I cut mine down to 6.5 feet. So give me a second, I'll be ready to roll. So I've got this marked at 18 inches from the top. And I'm going to take, when I get done with this 18-inch piece of fiberglass, I'm going to put a handle on it later. And what I'm going to use that is for when I go beyond the breakers as a fish club. It's got some good weight to it, won't break, and should just knock them senseless. I locked this whole thing into a vise. This is one of the best Christmas presents I ever got. I use it. I haven't tied it down to a table yet, but I move it around, and I use it when I'm tying leaders and stuff. Put the hook in there. Thing works great. And they're relatively cheap. That thing was like maybe 20 bucks. So I'm going to cut this off, and we'll be ready to roll. Okay, I've got the tree stake cut. I got an 18-inch piece here. Like I said, it's going to make a great fish club. Hold this right here in the vise. And next thing I'm going to do is put this on here. Not permanently, just to get it started. Okay, I've relocated things. Got this done. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to drill a hole straight down the center of this for this screw. This, once I get this thing set there, is going to be the part that holds it on tight. Use a rounded head screw. That way it won't bite into your hand. Okay, I've got the hole drilled. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to mix up some of this epoxy. And what it is a filler. And I want to mix up enough. It's going to go in here, around the top here, and around the sides. Hold this in place along with that screw. And I'm going to mix up enough that I can put it on with the pipe, hold that in place. So give me a second, be right back. Okay, we're back. Got the epoxy mixed. Doesn't smell all that great. Excuse me while I set down the camera. Now all we're going to do, take some of this stuff, put it right here in this hole. Got it there. Take this. And what I'm doing when I put this on is I'm turning it so it's smearing all over this thing. And we'll get a good grip on it. Next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to set the screw. Okay, I've got the screw set now. And if you look inside here, I hope you can see. Let me grab a light. Okay, the epoxy is right up against the top, so it's acting as a filler. It's around these edges, so it's also adhering to this to hold it tight. All right, next, what we're going to do is we're going to slide this on from the bottom. Okay, the PVC pipe is there, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some more of this epoxy. Sorry about all this. And put some of this epoxy that's starting to set already just along this thing. Just smear it on here. So it acts as a grip. Have a rag to wipe up any extra when you put this thing on. As you put it on, turn it. That way it's smearing around in there. Let me get rid of the extra. I use plastic spoons. That way my wife won't yell at me for using hers. Now that's on. I've got epoxy on it, inside of it. Okay, next part will be this hose thing from Tractor Supply. Put that all together. Okay, because I'd run out of epoxy, I used a little bit of Gorilla Glue on this. And that holds it all together. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to drill a hole for this piece that goes right here. Okay, I've got my hole drilled. And I'm going to put just a little bit of Gorilla Glue on this thing to hold it in there. What I did was I used a drill bit that was just exactly the right size. That way it screws through this and helps hold it in there. Okay, I've got that in. I set the bolt on the back. And the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to drill a hole here and a hole here, and I'm going to set a couple small screws. The reason being is when I'm trying to set this into the ground, I do not want this piece turning on me, or when I'm trying to pull it out. So by setting the screws there, it'll be solid. It'll give you a good grip for trying to get this thing in and out of mud. Okay, and there it is. 6.5 foot fiberglass stakeout pole. I let it set for 24 hours to let the epoxy and the glues and stuff harden. Grab a hold. I've got a screw here, a screw here. Make sure the screws don't come through because that will rip your hand up. With that eye bolt right there, you can connect it to a bungee cord or a rope. Now, on the bungee or on the connection, I use bungee cords. And what I did was I bought the wrong kind this time. Last time I did this, they had these flat bungee cords and they had D-rings built onto them, and I couldn't find them this time, so I ended up using these. And I had to strip the ends and bend them, and it's really strong metal, so I could put the carabiners through it. The other thing I had to do was, at this end I sewed them and connected them. What the bungee cords do is when you're connected to the stakeout pole in your kayak, they act as a shock absorber from when the wind blows or if you're getting pulled by a fish, so you're not just getting slammed against it. It works out pretty good. I put a quick release on it on one end. This end I connect to the pole itself. This connects to my anchor trolley. If I need to get off of it quick, I just release it, leave it hanging there. And the way I built this thing is I got my wife to help me, and we cut them down. She sewed them, and I'm using the electrical ties to hold the whole thing together, and it's worked pretty good instead of them flopping around. I'm not saying that's the best way to do it, so I'm not going to show you exactly how I did it. I'll let you figure that out yourself. But for a stakeout pole, these things work really good. They don't float, so I'm probably going to end up putting a rope through here with a float on it, just in case we drop another one in 3 or 4 feet of water and can't find it. Hopefully we can. And that's basically the whole thing. And all together, to do this with all the supplies in, 20 minutes and you're done. And you're looking at around $25 for the whole thing, maybe $30. Not a bad thing. Thanks for watching.